So this is the last day of 2020. I'm recording this on December the 31st, and I'm hoping to publish it the same day. And I just wanted to do something different today because this year has not been your typical year. It's challenged a lot of us. It's shaken our sense of reality up a little bit. And as our little lump of rock that contains everyone who has ever lived, every human being who has ever lived, has lived on this little rock in the infinite expanse of space. And every 365 Earth days, it travels around the sun. And so New Year's Eve and New Year's Day are traditionally a good time to start again, and we set resolutions and that kind of thing. But the truth is, we are reborn every day. We're reborn every minute. So there's no reason why tomorrow, New Year's Day, should be any different from any day. Because every day we get a chance to set intentions and start things rolling and keep up momentum perhaps, and reinvigorate ourselves, reset ourselves to begin again. So today, rather than talking to someone else, I've been very lucky this last year to talk to some very inspiring people who are really capturing the essence of what it is to be, to live in this life. They're creating their own Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. They're creating their own structure that the rest of us sometimes lean on other institutions to provide for us. So this whole notion of Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, we think it's just how the world works, but actually this is created for us. And we so easily fall into this. It becomes a crutch which we base our lives around. But this year with COVID and everything else, we've had that structure shaken a little bit. Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 isn't there, so we've been challenged to find our own structures and create our own routines, if you like. Sometimes that means we've drunk a little bit more than we should have done. Sometimes it means we've taken up new hobbies. Sometimes we've just struggled to get by. And this has been a challenging year for everyone, I think. If it hasn't affected us personally, it's affected people we know. Many of us will have lost loved ones. Many of us will know people who got sick or lost their jobs or had to adapt to a new way of working completely. I've spent this year working from home, and I've found it difficult at times, but also incredibly rewarding, and there have been new opportunities to do new things. I've created my own routines, I've tried new ideas out, I've played around with different things, and I've spoken to some many interesting people that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to speak to had I carried on the original format of my podcast, which was face-to-face. But it's meant that I've been able to reach out and speak to people across the world, thanks to technologies like Zoom and that sort of thing. And I think when we are challenged like this, when our traditional limitations are taken away from us, we are forced to kind of either retreat or to step up and try something new. So with that in mind, I want to talk about setting intentions. So I'm not going to talk about New Year's resolutions because New Year's resolutions haven't really worked for me in the past. I get to December the 31st and I talk about how I'm going to get fit and lose weight and save money and get out of debt and all that kind of stuff. And then come the 2nd of January, I've forgotten all of that kind of stuff already. And it's just a kind of something you say at the time and then it's forgotten about. But I want to talk about setting intentions for growth and for fulfilment this year. And so I hope you'll bear with me as I go through a few ideas. I haven't structured this particularly, but I've made a few notes in my big notebook. If you listen to any of my journal, any of my podcasts, or see any of my writing, I journal quite daily, as well as meditating and that kind of thing. And I have a big journal. As well. So I have my daily small journal, and I have a big journal as well that I do my projects in, put down ideas and that kind of thing. So this is all about setting intentions for growth and fulfillment and maintaining that momentum. Like I said, I'm just doing this at the end of the year, but you could listen to this any day of the year and start again. You can start afresh any day, any minute you want. All you have to do is make a decision to start and then keep that momentum going. So I'm going to just leaf through the pages of my big notebook and we'll get started with a few ideas that maybe You might do some of these things already. You might have not heard about any of these. You might think some of these are a bit daft, but hopefully there's something in here. It's one of these ideas that can resonate with you a little bit and help you to make the most of life, to be and to be better. That's what this whole podcast is about. So the first thing I want to say is that if we want our situation to change, we have to change ourselves. I spent a lot of my life waiting for life to reward me for all my hard work. I felt like I'd worked really hard, but life had just passed me by. And it didn't reward me. And then I started working on myself. This is about 5 years ago. And quite quickly, my situation changed. So I'd done all the things that I thought you were supposed to do. I had my good CV. I'd had, brilliant LinkedIn profile, all that kind of stuff. My work experience was pretty good. And I was really struggling. I couldn't get anywhere with it. But then I started to change myself. And I opened my eyes. My world got bigger. And I realized that I'd been limiting myself quite a lot through my state of mind, my mindset, my paradigms, if you like. And so I started working hard to shift that. And when I shifted that, it's almost like the blinkers fell down and my world opened up and I became more open-minded, and suddenly opportunities came to them. And I have benefited from these greatly, and I really enjoy life now. I used to feel like it was a real slog. And sometimes it still is a bit of a slog. But right now I'm doing things I enjoy. I am engaged with life. And like I say, if you've read any of my books, when you step up to life, life will step up to meet you. So this podcast is all about stepping up to life, setting intentions for growth and fulfillment, and creating mindset that will enable you to live a little bit more of your potential over the next 365 days. And I think the key message I think from all of this is that if we want to change our world, if we want a better life, we have to change ourselves, our ideas, our belief systems, all the things that we kind of, it's very easy not to recognize that half the problems in our lives are actually coming from within us. It's very easy to blame circumstances or bad things that have happened to you. But every step of the way, we have a choice. Sometimes we are disempowered. So we might, bullies might disempower us. I had a terrible boss who bullied me for a long time and my confidence was low, but I still had the power to make choices. So we need to find a way to increase our strength, increase our empowerment, to take charge of our lives, to step up to life so that it will step up to meet us. So one of the first things I want to talk about is that we are building a practice here. So it's a daily practice. And it's not just about setting an intention and then off we go. You don't go to the gym and then you're fit and slim. You go to the gym and you keep going to the gym. So we're building a practice and we're trying to keep it fresh because it's very easy to stagnate, especially when, we're 6 months into the year perhaps and we're on the treadmill, we're going to work every day, coming home, switching on the TV, having dinner, going to bed, waking up, going to work, coming home, switching on the TV. It's very easy for that to become jaded and tired. So we need to keep this fresh. And so there are ideas in here about keeping it fresh. There are ideas in here about making sure that we stay on track for course correction, all that kind of stuff. So one of the things I want to talk about is about how our world is created by our perception of it. So it's very easy for us to assume that we are certain people because of where we live, for example. We adopt this identity. And when I worked as a van driver, I would go to estates, council estates, municipal building projects, and I would meet people who had fallen into the role of someone who, for them, this is what life is. Living in small, damp flats with no sense that actually things can get better. Good things don't just happen to other people. If we set our mind to it and we fight and we fight and we work and we keep our eyes on the prize, then we can make things better for ourselves. There's a motivational speaker called David Brooks, and he said that successful people have two beliefs. The first is that tomorrow can be better than today, and the second is that I have the power to make it so. And we all have the power to make tomorrow better than today. We just have to choose it. But we won't choose that while we're focused on everything that's going wrong for us, focused on all the obstacles, focused on everything that's going terribly in the world. We are constantly bombarded with negative news. Politicians are letting us down. Politicians are doing awful things. They're scandalous. They're corrupt. There's war, pollution, the climate crisis is going on all at once, and yet we feel as responsible adults, we need to be on, really switched on to all of this all of the time, and it gets under our skin. It makes us feel negative about life. But all you have to do is look out the window and spend a moment or two just to watch the clouds going past, to plant a garden, just to bring beauty into your life. And that, once you accept that and once you focus on that, then your life becomes more beautiful. And we can do this to ourselves. We can reprogram ourselves to change our perception, to see opportunities, to see our own strengths as well as the strengths of others, and to build more of that into our lives. And one of the things that I'm going to go on to now is about defining our roles. So I am various different people throughout the day. There are times when I have to be an employee and I have to work for someone else. I have to be a professional. There are times when I have to be practical. There are times where I have to be a loving father, a husband. Then there are times where I just have to be by myself. And, there are different aspects to our lives, and we need to factor them all in. We need to consider them. We need to consider who we need to be, what our identities are at different times of the day. And we need to understand what our roles are. And also, we need to think about our different states, our different aspects, facets of who we are, our mental states, our emotional states, our physical states, our spiritual states. Because we need to keep on top of all of these things. If we work on our professional state, then our relationships can start to fail. If we're constantly working all of the time, chasing money or status or whatever it is, then we can start to suffer in other areas. If we constantly working on our physical state and we neglect our mental state or our emotional state, then we can start to suffer in other ways. And vice versa. I know people who are incredibly successful professionally, but their health is deteriorating, and especially in times where there is a deadly virus going around. We need to be on top of our mental state, our emotional state, our spiritual state, and our physical state. So it's about building practices that can look after all of these. And it could just be something as simple as drinking 3 litres of water a day. I always try and drink 3 litres of water a day. It seems like a lot, but it's just 6 glasses of water, and I can have half of that before breakfast. I also try and get some sort of exercise every day. It can just be a few press-ups in the morning. Nothing. You don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to be running marathons twice a week. Just do something that raises your heart rate. Drink some water. Eat healthily. Less processed food. Less salt and sugar and takeaways, that sort of thing. Try and make stuff yourself. This is all about engaging with life, stepping up to life. And the more you step up to life, life will step up to meet you. And it's also about taking responsibility for who you are and your state. You can either be a victim to life, and when all your bad decisions come to fruition and you find that you're unwell or you're overweight, you can say, oh, life's so unfair, this is so unfair that this is happening to me. Or you can say, I made this happen and I can get myself better. And that's what this is all about. And it's not easy. You can't keep an eye on everything all the time, otherwise the routine starts to own you. So there must be some give and take in it. There are going to be some days where you don't feel like exercising. There are going to be some days where you just can't fit in 3 litres of water. There are going to be some days where you can't get enough sleep because you've got a deadline or a project to finish. But it's just being mindful of all of these different elements of your life. So you have to decide, what are the different elements of my life, the different segments that I'm going to work on, that I want to improve, and what am I missing? Is there anything I've overlooked here? For me, I have a routine. I get up every morning. I'm an early riser. I get up at 5:30, but that means I also have to go to bed early because I'm normally knackered by the end of the day. And I get up at 5:30 in the morning. I'm not Jocko Willink. I don't get up at 4:30. I'm not completely mad. But I get up at 5:30, I go downstairs, I do some exercise. Some days I go for a jog, some days I just do some press-ups. If you know Joe Wicks, the body coach, I use his videos. I'm not some sort of ex-army crazy military dude. I'm just me. I'm just an ordinary guy trying to do my best, like all of us are. So yeah, I get up, I do some exercise for half an hour, and then I do some meditation for 15 or 20 minutes every day. Some days it works for me, some days it doesn't. Normally it doesn't, but then when it does, it can be quite a rewarding and revitalizing experience. So the thing about doing all of these things is that they overlap. So when you are feeling rested, then I find my mood is much better. When I've had a good night's sleep, I feel more confident. When I've done lots of exercise, I feel more confident, more able to face the day and face my challenges. James Baldwin, the famous writer, said that facing things doesn't necessarily change them, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And I think we can take that into our personal lives as well as the challenges of the world. I used to, when I was at my lowest, I would get letters from the bank and I wouldn't open them. I'd hide them away from me. I didn't want to face that challenge. And my financial situation got worse and worse and worse. And I realised that my financial situation was actually very closely connected to my self-esteem and my self-confidence. So gradually I started to face up to my financial situation. I started to open those bank statements and see just how bad it was. And that was, in a way, incredibly empowering, because suddenly I had information and I was in a position where I could make change, where I could do things to make my situation better. And here I am a few years later, and life is so much more beautiful. I feel so much more confident, and we can all find areas where we can improve things. But I'm going to come on to that a little bit later. So we need to think about who we want to be. Do we want to be someone who is continuing to be afraid, continuing to struggle in the places where we're struggling? Or do we want to be someone who is on top of their life, who is really enjoying what it feels like to take responsibility and have ownership of our situation and our lives? And we can ask ourselves, what do we want to do? Okay, I want to be a triathlete, or I want to be, do an Ironman contest, or I want to be a millionaire. But it's also worth asking ourselves, how do we want to feel? So this time next year, how do we want to feel about ourselves, about the previous 12 months? And just try and understand, who would we need to be in order to feel like that? What would we need to do in order to feel like that? Would we still be an employee? Would we still be eating the food we eat? To feel really good about ourselves, would we need to be, at the mercy of our addictions, if you like, or would we be in control of everything, in charge of our situation? Now, I'm not saying we should become control freaks or anything like that, but we do have power over our lives, and the more we start to exert it, the more power we get. So I'm going to take a moment now to talk about spheres of influence. So we struggle a bit with reality, or at least I do. But this fighting with reality doesn't get us anywhere. Our current situation right now, you can't change this moment. It is fixed in stone. It is the fruit of everything that's gone before, and it is like an immovable object. Yet we struggle with that. We get angry. Oh my God, how is this happening to me again? Why haven't I got enough money? How come I'm overweight? We struggle with these conflicts. But there's nothing we can do about it. Our anger doesn't change anything. All we can do is take action now to change the next moment. But you have to understand, there are only three things that we have any control over. It's what we think, what we feel, and what we do. So we can't make other people behave a certain way. We can't change the world around us. We only have those three things that we have any ownership of. So we have to become very accepting of our situation. We have to say, okay, this is how it is. This is how it is. I can't change this moment. As uncomfortable as this moment is, I cannot change it. But what I can do is I can change the next moment. I can start to take action that will change the next moment. Or I can start to take ownership of how I feel or what I think. Sometimes when we get angry or when we get upset, we blame our circumstances for making us upset. But it's our reaction. Being upset is our reaction to these circumstances. Circumstances or people, they can't reach inside us. We see people push our buttons, but they're our buttons. And it's up to us if we allow people to push them or not. So we have to learn to let go and accept what's going on in the world. And acceptance is very much like forgiveness. When we forgive someone, it's not about letting them off the hook. It's about saying that we no longer want to punish ourselves. So, yeah, we can say, oh my God, this situation is so unfair. I hate my job, or I hate myself. I hate my weight. Or we can say, hang on a minute, these feelings, they're not doing us any good. These thoughts I'm having, they're just creating more of that same kind of negative feedback that is continuing to perpetuate this negative state of mind, this unhappiness or this dissatisfaction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to practice accepting where I am. I'm just going to say, whatever is going on right now, I'm going to let it be. And I'm going to take the action to make my thoughts happier, make my emotions more positive, and take action to make things better. Because action is where everything changes. And I find that meditation practice really helps me with that. I find exercise really helps me with that. Often when I wake up with quite a negative mindset. And meditation exercise helps me just kick myself out of that and, keep my momentum going and my energy up. So I talked a little bit about how do I want to feel, who do I need to be in 12 months when I'm feeling the way I want to feel rather than the way I felt at the start of this process. And remember, this needs to be all relative to you. So, I'm not going to say I want to be David Beckham, but I want to be a more successful version of myself, for example. I want to be doing things that interest me. I want to be slimmer. I want to be happier, healthier. And these are all things we can achieve by taking control of those things, our direct sphere of influence, the things we think, the things we feel, and the things we do. And what is amazing about these three things, that's all we have any control over. Yet we spend a lot of our time, flapping about, wrestling with all the other things that we can't control. And when we actually start to take control of those three things, take ownership of those three things, what we think, what we feel, and what we do, that's when we start to exert a kind of proxy influence on the other things. The more we worry about what people think of us, often the less they think of us. But the more we stop worrying about what they think of us and just focus on ourselves, our own actions, our own feelings, our own thoughts, the more highly people start to think of us. The more we go out there and just do our thing, the more we go and do us, the more the world around us will change to accept us and step up to meet us. I had a conversation with Martha Beck, who was she's regarded as America's best known life coach, although I'd say she's a lot more than just a life coach. And she said to me, sometimes, when we let go, when we stop wrestling, when we stop striving and wanting for those things that we want, which in a way is actually focusing on our lack, our sense of lack. When we stop striving and just focus on what we think, what we feel, and what we do, then the things we want find their way to us. So I've gone off tangent a little bit. So we're talking about who we want to be in this time next year. And that's our kind of ultimate goal, if you like. Which version of us are we planning on being? But the idea is also to break it down into actionable goals, things you can do every day, little steps, little habits that you can build that will help you get where you need to be. So if you want to be slimmer, you could take on a practice of counting your calories, drinking more water, getting more exercise. If you want to be more alert, more confident, you could work on getting to bed earlier every night. You can make it a practice, change your routine a bit, change the way you do things. If you want to just invite exercise into your life, you could get off the bus and stop early if you like, things like that. And so we're trying to reverse engineer the lifestyle and the life of everyone, or the person we want to be. And I use a lot of different tools. I journal every day. I I do visualization exercises. Who do I want to be? I have this kind of character called Chris X. It's a bit like the iPhone X. And it's the ideal version of me. And so every day I try and work on that a little bit more. I have Pinterest boards where I pin things. I have gone into detail about my perfect day. What's that going to look like? What's the house I look like? What does that look like? What noises are going on around me? What does my morning routine look like? And actually, it's not that different from the morning routine I've got now, except I have a bit more time. My house is a bit bigger. Maybe I've got nicer clothes and I'm a bit more muscly, less floppy around all the chubby bits. But, really try and picture what that life is that you want. And then you can start to work on reverse engineering it. And every day we're looking to move in that direction. So we're doing it one step at a time. You can walk across America only being able to see 3 feet in front of you as long as you're going in the right direction. And you want to adopt processes that help you get there, little routines that eventually become habits that you don't even have to think about anymore. You're drinking more water, getting more exercise, journaling. You could spend 10 minutes a day just going over your spending for the day and your finances, whatever it is. Just take ownership of it. See it as a project. See getting healthy, getting better as a bit of a project. Make it possible, realistic and achievable. So I've, over the last few years, started doing a lot of things that interest me more. This podcast is one of my loves. I don't have a huge audience, but I've spoken to some really fascinating and inspiring people. This year I've taken up foraging. You can call me an sad old man if you like, but it's amazing just what is available in the hedgerows around where I live. And my next podcast is going to be an interview with a foraging. He doesn't like to be called an expert, but he's certainly an authority on foraging. And just all around us, the world is offering us little things that interest us. And the more we look for it, the more we slow down and engage, the more we find the world is offering us opportunities for interesting things to engage us, to enrich our lives. And that's what I've been trying to do with foraging, with this podcast, with doing small things that make me feel more connected to the world. And that includes a gratitude practice. So every day before I go to bed, I think about three wins from my day. Even if I've had an awful day, I have to come up with 3 things that have gone my way. So it could be that I had a nice email from someone congratulating me on one of my books. It could be that I had a nice comment from someone at work, or it could be that, I just had a nice dinner. Whatever it is, I try and find 3 wins. Even when I've had the day from hell, I always try and have 3 wins. And I finish my day off on a positive mindset. And then I think about 3 things I'm grateful for. They could be something spiritual, like, taking a moment to pause under the stars when I went out to collect logs for the wood burner. It could be about just having my family around me. Or it could even just be the taste of that first cup of coffee in the morning, when you don't want to get out of bed, but you have to because you've committed to doing this ridiculous exercise routine at 5:30 in the morning. I work very hard to be the best I can be. I have many flaws like many people do, and I'm aware of them, and I face up to them, and I try not to let those flaws get the better of me. Just like I try not to eat too much, try not to be too lazy, try not to let the washing up build up around me. I try and engage and get active and face things. Like James Baldwin said, when you face things, you have the possibility to change them. But if you're hiding away from them, you don't have the possibility to change anything. And this makes me more confident. The more I engage with life and take ownership and see that I do have the ability to change things, the more confident I become. And then that in turn feeds back into the cycle, and I become more engaged with life. I take more action and that sort of thing. But it's not easy. I'm not a particularly confident person. I work very hard at this. I work very hard to step up. I don't like having conversations with people. If it was up to me, I would go and live in a cave somewhere and be a complete hermit. But I know that's not going to be in my best interests, So I have to force myself to keep going. And at the very beginning, when I was right at rock bottom, I would be working shifts in the van delivering groceries all around the south of England. And I'd get up at 3:30 in the morning, and I would drive across country 25 miles to the depot to pick up the van. And I pretty much hated myself for allowing my life to get this bad. I hated my guts. But I had started doing this inner work, and I was trying to reframe my mindset, if you like, because I knew that I'd done everything on the outside and it hadn't worked for me. I'd done everything that everyone else told me I should do, and it didn't work for me. But in the process, I lost sense of myself. So I was trying to reclaim that mindset. And I turned to things like mantras, affirmations. And these can work for you. Some things work for me, other things don't. But one of the mantras I used to repeat over and over and over on that drive to work was a phrase from Emile Coué, who was the godfather of what is called optimistic autosuggestion. And this mantra is, every day, in every way, I am getting better and better. And I used to repeat it every day in every way, I am getting better and better. Every day in every way, I am getting better and better. And I don't know if it made any difference, but it made me think about, where can I improve my life? Every day in every way, I am getting better and better. I repeat it over and over and over for weeks. And then I switched to another one. It was a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, and this later became the inspiration for the title of my first book. And that is, whosoever does the thing shall have the power. And I was like, what is the thing? What is the thing? Whosoever does the thing shall have the power. And what he's saying there is, whoever takes the action wins the reward. And for me, taking the action was doing little things to make myself happier, because I realised that I'd been working so hard for so long, and I'd kept my head down, and I'd done what everyone told me to do. I didn't rock the boat. I just did what I was supposed to do. Followed all the guides. I did what my teachers at school told me I should be doing, and I was unhappy. And I was kind of there thinking, when is the thing going to happen that is going to make me happy? And I really realised that you have to be happy first, and then life starts to fall into place. You have to do the things that interest you, and then life starts to fall into place. We're either the subject of our lives, or the lives are our subjects. Life either works on us, or we work on it. And that's something I was going to save till later on, but I want to mention it now because I heard a conversation with Tim Ferriss. Podcasts have been very influential in my life, and Tim Ferriss is one of the first ones I used to listen to. And he was having a conversation with someone, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Brené Brown, for like a double whammy of positivity. But he was saying, we are always dealing with our crap. Even when we're not consciously dealing with it, we're dealing with it one way or another. If we're not dealing with it now, we're going to deal with it later. If we're not dealing with our health now, we're going to have to deal with it later. And so we have the choice always to deal with our stuff. And if we hide from it, like I was hiding from my bank statements, my financial situation, then you start dealing with it in other ways. You deal with it in anxiety, and you deal with it in lack of self-esteem and low confidence. You deal with it by not feeling like you have any control over your life. If you have poor habits, you might deal with it in bad health. I know people who are suffering from years of bad decisions when it comes to food and drink and things like that. I know people who are suffering from years of not dealing with situations one way or another. And this could be any kind of situation. It could be a relationship situation. It could be a professional situation. It could be a self-esteem situation, which is what I used to deal with quite a lot. And that also brings me onto another quote, another mantra, which recently has become something of a guiding principle for me. And this is something that my friend, the very inspirational Leanne Perot, who is the founder of Black Women Rising and the Movement Factory, she said to me when, I can't remember if I read it in her book or if I read, it was something she said when she was a guest on my podcast, but she said, the best thing you can bring to any relationship is a healthy, happy you. And this is really important, I think, because I talk a lot about protecting our power and our energy. And we give all the time, we work hard, we stay up late, and actually self-care is really important, because how can you be the best father to your child if you're not looking after yourself, if you're tired, or you're hungover, or you're constantly overweight and having health issues? How can you be the best employee if you're constantly sleeping in because you stayed up too late the night before? How can you be the best partner, husband, if you're just tired and irritable and angry? How can you be the best in any situation if you're not looking after yourself? So if we want to do our best for other people, it's not about sacrifice. It's about protecting our power, nurturing our power. And this is what I've been talking about all the way along between, I've been talking about drinking more water. It's not a selfish thing to look after yourself. It's about making sure you have the energy to give everything you can to life. Because when you do, like I've said, life will step up to meet you. So the best thing you can bring to any relationship, whether that's personal, professional, or even your relationship with yourself, is a healthy, happy you. So let's really focus on that. The next 365 days, let's really focus on that. There's a reason I have talked about these 3 quotes, and that's because one quote will start to stagnate. And I can't remember who it was, but someone said, all living things are constantly moving, and it's only things that are dead that don't move. Now, you could say that everything is moving. If you look at any atom in anything, it's always vibrating, even down at a subatomic level. But just think about that from a kind of philosophical point of view. Everything that's moving is alive. The trees are constantly moving. There's changes in season. The birds are flying. And for us as well, if we stand still for too long, things start to stagnate. And this is why we get that kind of treadmill, that weariness of life. That's why we get through half of the year and we think, oh my God, when is this going to end? When am I going to get a break? When's things going to change? So we need to keep changing. So I have a mantra. I use it for a while, and then I change it for another one. I have my journaling practice that I do before I go to bed. I'll do that for 6 months, and then I'll change it. I might do it first thing in the morning, or I might change the structure of it. I might put a focus on gratitude. I might put a focus on getting ideas out. I might put a focus on something else. So lots of different ideas, notions, and focus on different things. Just keep switching it up. Fitness experts will tell you, if you go to the gym and do the same exercises time and time again, they won't be as effective after 5 weeks of doing them as they were when you first started. So you need to change your routine, keep it fresh. Put post-its on the mirror that you see first thing in the morning with motivational quotes, if you like. And we're going to talk about that now when I talk about this next quote from the Greek philosopher Thucydides. And he said, happiness comes from freedom. Freedom comes from courage. Now, this for me was a bit of a game changer, and I've only heard it in the last year. My friend Iro Uranu, who designed the cover of my first book and my last book, this was on her Instagram profile. I looked it up. Happiness comes from courage. Happiness comes from freedom. Freedom comes from courage. And this was a game changer for me, because this gave me the tools I need to go and get what I want. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase, what you focus on expands. So I talked a little bit about it at the beginning of the podcast when I was talking about perception. So what you focus on expands. So all the things that you give your attention to, they become big in your life. So if you're focusing on the news and you're keeping up to date with what the Conservative government's doing, what the Democrats are doing in America, what the Republicans are doing, there's going to be a lot of politics in your life. And this is why I always try and say, reduce your news input if you can, because the negative stuff going on in the world, the scandal, the corruption, the war, the famine, the climate crisis, will be big in your life. So try and bring in beauty, try and bring in positivity, try and develop a practice of seeking out more opportunities, poetry, all of that kind of thing. Bring it into your life, because what you focus on expands. So, for example, I used to drive a Land Rover. I have a bit of a thing for Land Rovers. I love Land Rovers. And when this was starting to happen, I would see Land Rovers everywhere, because you're just tuned into it. It's like some people call it the yellow car theory. If you tell someone to keep an eye out for yellow cars, they're going to start seeing yellow cars everywhere. And that's not because there are more yellow cars around all of a sudden. But you're just tuned into it. You're tuned into it. And you can tune yourself into opportunities. You can tune yourself into, anything that you're interested in. You can make it bigger in your life. But we also inadvertently make things bigger when we don't need it. So news media makes crime bigger. It makes war bigger, famine, all the problems of the world, which we are not designed to deal with on a rolling basis. Yeah, it's good to keep abreast of what the global situation is, but we don't need it twice a day, 3 times a day. We don't need to be having the newspaper as our homepage whenever we go on the internet. We don't need to be that tuned in to all the misery that's going on. Let's tune in instead to all the things that are good about ourselves, the opportunities, the new things to try. Foraging, for example. Let's go make some jam. Anyway, this takes me on to a little story from my honeymoon when I was in Vietnam. Now, my wife is a much more adventurous person than me, and I've told this story a few times on the podcast. But I don't know if you know what the streets in Vietnam are like, but a lot of people ride mopeds. It is moped-tastic out there. It is chaos on the streets. There don't seem to be any rules for, where you're supposed to go. It's not like in England where it's very clear who's at fault when anything goes wrong. In Vietnam, it is every man for himself. And I'd never ridden a moped before, and so I was terrified. And when we got the moped, the guy who rented it to us said, you have to focus on the gap. When you're going somewhere, don't focus on all the obstacles. Focus on the gap you're trying to get through. Because if you focus on the obstacle, you'll hit the obstacle. And that's what happens when we focus on all the things that are going wrong in our lives. All these insurmountable obstacles, they get bigger. What you focus on expands, so it gets bigger, and it just dominates our view, if you like. But when we focus on the gap, the thing we want, the objective, when you keep your eye on the prize, that's when you are going in the right direction. So I talked about that quote, happiness comes from freedom, freedom comes from courage. And that makes me think of another quote from the motivational speaker George Adair, which everyone knows this quote. Everything you want is on the other side of courage. Everything you want is on the other side of fear. And that is, everyone talks about this quote. Everything you want is on the other side of fear. But, okay, yeah, I'm afraid. I get it. And what I want is on the other side of that fear, but I'm still afraid. But if we switch that around, if we borrow from Thucydides and change it to everything you want is on the other side of courage, it's like that's your solution right there. You can have anything you want if you have the courage to go and get it. And suddenly courage becomes much bigger in your life. Focus on the courage. And what does courage feel like? It feels like taking a breath. It feels like forgiveness. It feels like release and letting go. Courage, we kind of think about firefighters and war heroes and things like that. But sometimes courage can be getting out of bed in the morning to face the day. Courage can be choosing not to have a drink when you really, really want one. Courage can be... It could be getting up to face the day. Courage can be asking for that time off at work. Courage can be choosing not to rise to the bait, not to take the bait. Courage can be just letting go. And courage, just take a breath. Take a big breath in. Take a big breath in and feel what it's like when your body expands. Feel the tension as the muscles get bigger. And then breathe out. Take that big deep breath in. Because that's what courage feels like. That's what freedom feels like. Just a breath. And a single breath can be a meditation. It can be the difference between reacting angrily and responding in a calm and measured way. Just a deep breath and a release. And that's what forgiveness feels like. And that's what I want to come on to now. I'm talking about courage and letting go. And there's a quote by Marcus Garvey. And he said, if you have no confidence in self, you're truly defeated in the game of life. And now I don't know about you, but I'm someone who, when faced with a challenge, it's very easy for me to retreat. When someone tells me I'm not good enough, rather than rising to the challenge, rather than seeing that as a gauntlet that's been thrown down, I generally retreat into myself. So I have to really take courage, because it's very easy to hold on to ideas and beliefs, but actually to move forward, we need to let go of those things that hold us back, that fear, if you like. And that takes courage. Sometimes when we're passionate about something, when we're angry about something, it's harming us. So we need to figure out how to move on and to let go. And sometimes, letting go of being right, for example, sometimes letting just someone else have that argument and not taking part in it, not proving a point. There are people who will miss the complete point of what someone is saying and instead choose to point out that they've used an apostrophe in the wrong place. And I don't know what they gain from that, but let that shit go. If you're an apostrophe Nazi and someone is trying to open their soul on a piece of writing or something like that, and you want to point out they've used the wrong apostrophe, then you need to understand why you're doing that. Just let it go, because it gets in the way of living a fulfilled and content life. So letting go, anger, forgiveness, these are all about reducing the friction in our lives and shedding the burden of all we are not. Because I've talked about how I followed everyone's advice before and I ended up in an unhappy place. And it was only when I started to focus on who I was internally, do that inner work, that life started to improve for me. Because I was reconnecting with who I was. Now, Muji says, step into the fire of self-discovery. It will not burn you, but it will burn everything you are not. And this is something I'm moving on to now. I'm talking about acceptance. I'm talking about letting go. We need to let go of the things that hurt us. There could be a past trauma that we are still experiencing day in, day out, because it's become part of our identity. A good example of this is I used to have a relative, a not very nice person, who caused a lot of problems in our family. And they came from a particular town. And now, they died a long time ago. And wherever they are now, I hope that they're doing okay. But they left a bit of a painful memory in our family. And so we could never go to this town because it brought a load of memories back. So in essence, that memory owned that part of the world. We couldn't access that part of the world. But it's a beautiful part of the world. And we're allowing it to be taken from us. But when we let go of that hurt and that anger, our world literally gets bigger. We now have a beautiful town that we can go to. Another example is when I was bullied from a boss. I've always been a writer, and then I was a photographer. And I was bullied by a boss, and it left such a terrible taste in my mouth when I was working as a writer that I didn't want to work again. I didn't want to write again. And for 10 years, I didn't write. And this bully had basically stolen my ability to write from me. And then one day I said, I don't want them to own this anymore. I'm going to start writing again. And it was like, I don't know, it was like my world just got much, much bigger. I'd reconnected with a part of me that was, I'd shed all of this pain and this hurt. I'd reconnected with something that was me. And my life suddenly got better. And I've been, 3 books later, I'm still blogging, writing, and I love it. My life is enriched all for it. So we need to let go of all the things that are holding us back. Like I said, forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about letting go of that hurt that we cause to ourselves, that anger. It's saying, I'm not letting them off the hook. I'm letting myself off the hook. Just in the same way that courage is the antidote to fear, we hold on to fear. Fear gives us an excuse for not trying, for not taking action, because what might go wrong? Well, take a deep breath and see what might go right. What might go right if we decided not to keep honouring that trauma that happened to us day in, day out? Who might we be if we stop being a victim? The things we hold on to us. And like any Buddhist will tell you, attachment is suffering. So just maybe ask yourself, what are you holding on to? What is making you angry? What is making your life... where's that friction coming from? Where are you holding on and unable to let go? Where are you wrestling with reality? I talked about letting go of being right, stopping, how many arguments could we avoid if we stopped trying to prove a point just for the sake of proving a point? And like I said, right at the very beginning, we can't change this present moment, but we can take action to change the next moment. And we can make the next moment better, and the one after that, and the one after that. And this will all compound into something much, much better, much, much bigger. It might not happen tomorrow, but it might happen in a month's time, in a year's time. Who would we be in a year's time if we started letting go of the fear of trying and just started taking action that compounded? Could we be slimmer, stronger, more confident, happier, wealthier? Who knows? Let's just stop being afraid of what might go wrong and start creating something better. And this idea of fear brings me on to my next point, and it's about false narratives. So we're constantly creating stories in our heads that aren't true. You know, we leave a message on someone's answer phone and they don't call us back. It's like, well, why aren't they calling us back? Are they angry at us? All we know is that they haven't called us back. We don't actually know anything other than what we know. Yet we try and fill in the gaps with these kind of false narratives that we create. I won't ask for the pay rise because I don't want to annoy my boss. You know, oh, what kind of mood's he in? Oh, he's not going to like receiving that email. We don't know that. We don't know why the person hasn't phoned us back. We don't know why our numbers didn't come up on the lottery. We can make up all kinds of stories. And that starts to poison our thinking, if you like. What will people think of me if I start this business? They're going to think I'm stupid. You don't know anything. What will people think of me if I start doing a podcast about setting intentions for the future? They're going to think it's cringeworthy. You don't know that. Just do it. Do the thing. I'll never succeed. This will never go right. Nothing ever works out for me. If we keep telling ourselves that, it will always kind of perpetuate, because we'll start behaving like someone who fails, and then we'll bring it into reality. I think it was Ford who said, whether you believe you're right or you believe you're wrong, you're right. Or whether you believe you'll succeed or whether you believe you'll fail, you're right. So we need to believe in the best. Let's base our outlook on our successes, our strengths, our weaknesses, all the things that we know to be true, and start focusing on those. Focus for the gap, eyes on the prize. Focus where you want to go, just like on that moped. If you focus on the obstacle, you'll hit the obstacle. Focus on the gap, and that is through courage, letting go of fear, and then stepping forward, taking a breath, stepping forward. Jean-Luc Godard said, "He who steps into the void owes no explanation to those who stand and watch." So stop worrying about what people are going to think. Stop creating false narratives. Take a deep breath and step forward. And that brings me on to a little bit about uncertainty. So one of the ways that we fight with reality, I've talked about fighting with reality and where we are now, is because we are obsessed with certainty. We worry about what might go wrong because we can't guarantee that everything is going to go right for us. But the thing is, there's no such thing as certainty. So, we're never going to find it. We're never going to find what we need if we just keep fighting with reality. So we need to embrace uncertainty as the only certain thing. The only thing we can know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. If you wait for the perfect time for everything to be right for you to take action, you will never have the perfect time to take action. Even if you fail at a task or an objective, you're going to be better than you were before. You'll have learned something. Like Thomas Edison said, I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work. And here we are today with the light bulb. Most common thing in the house, a light bulb that literally, people's houses aren't burning down. We are here and we are, blessed with the ability to see in the dark. And that's because Thomas Edison found 10,000 ways that didn't work. And we also need to listen to our intuition. Martha Beck, who I mentioned earlier on, she talked about your spirit mule, finding your spirit mule. And she says this in a joking way. It's like having a spirit animal. And it's not. It's just noticing what you notice. It's tuning in to your intuition. That's what she's talking about. So our perception is like a massive filter. We are constantly bombarded with information all the time. And when it's coming to us, we have to filter it out. And depending on our perspective, we will filter it according to what state of mind we're in, what mood we're in, how we're feeling about the world. And if we have a negative mindset and a negative perception, we're going to reinforce that. But when we become aware of what we're noticing, that's our subconscious talking to us. And in a way, intuition is our connection to the world. Our intuition is seeking patterns out all the time. And like Jason Garner said, he's the chap I interviewed in one of my podcasts, he said that life is talking to us all the time, and it's going to get louder and louder and louder until it smacks you in the face. And that smack could come as a health scare. It could come as a professional crisis. It could come as a wobble in your relationship. But the idea is to pay attention and to face up to it and see what's happening before it happens. And there's also this aspect of our intuition. Carl Jung talked about things beneath the threshold of consciousness. He said, beneath the threshold of consciousness, everything was seething with life. And our life gets so much better when we start to listen to, what are our dreams telling us about ourselves? What is our attention being drawn to right now? How can we connect with who we are and what our mind is trying to tell us? Because we have our waking mind and our conscious mind and the mind that goes to work every day and drives the car. But then there's also a part of us that connects to art and poetry and comes alive when we hear the wind in the trees. What is our subconscious telling us? Because, there's only, what do they say, 10% of our mind that is being activated when we're awake. And we're tuning into things all the time. We're not even conscious of it. I've talked about meditation, but meditation is a great way of slowing things down, getting quiet, so you can train yourself to listen to what's going on in yourself, what's going on in your mind. So this has all been about taking ownership, if you like, taking ownership of your life, taking ownership of your situation, and that requires a certain amount of self-awareness. Self-awareness when you're making excuses, self-awareness when you're falling into bad habits and repeating negative cycles and patterns. And self-awareness enables us to step away from our thoughts for a moment, step away from trying not to face up to who we really are, stepping up to the fact that our situation might be the result of some bad decisions that we've made. And doing it in a non-judgmental way. You can sort of say, okay, I'm here looking like this because I've eaten too many Big Macs. And you don't have to judge yourself. It's not a criticism, it's just an observation. And when we can learn to be self-aware in a non-judgmental way, we can start to use that to really take ownership of our lives. And not only take ownership of our lives, but learn to celebrate others, the people who have achieved the things that we would like to achieve, up to their potential, to realize some of the rewards that life has to offer once we figure out how the game works a little bit. Those people who are trying a little bit more, being a little bit extra, who are bringing their game a little bit harder so that they can really achieve more. It's very easy when someone sets out to do something great like run a marathon for us to kind of say, what, you run a marathon? Or when someone achieves something, for us to say, well, it's all right for you, isn't it? It's all right, lucky for you to do that. But what about me? I've not had the opportunities that you've had. And whether or not that's the case, we should try to celebrate people who are doing something a bit different, who are going beyond the mediocre life that is so easy for us to fall into. And I want to come on now to a little bit about a few things we can do to improve our lives. One of those things is to stop complaining along with stopping judging. So we talked about not judging people. Whatever we think about what people have done, whatever we think about what people are doing, if they're trying to do something different, if they've made a few mistakes, let's not judge them, because we're only getting a small snippet of information. We're not living their lives, so it's very easy for us to be judgmental. But we hate to be judged ourselves. We hate for people to judge us. And that keeps our world small when we're judgmental, because there is that fear that if we're judging others, then they're going to be judging us too. So it makes us a little bit afraid of stepping out and trying something new. So, those in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. So let's not throw stones anymore, because when we become non-judgmental and more accepting of people, then we are able to spread our own wings and our own world gets a little bit bigger. And the other one is to stop complaining. When you're complaining about how bad life is, how bad the government is, how bad the world is, and how corrupt everyone is, and how everyone's out to get you, it really tunes your brain into that negativity. I was talking about your perception before and how you can retrain yourself to see more beauty, or how you can focus on negativity. When you're complaining, you are literally training your mind to focus in on negative things. So how about, rather than complaining about stuff, we focus instead on good things? So those are a few little practices. And why it's important to do things like stopping complaining and stopping judging is because of a thing called neuroplasticity. When we do something, when we perform an action, when we listen to some news, think a certain thought, do a certain thing, we create a pathway in our brain. And when we repeat that thought, we repeat that intention, that feeling, that pathway gets reinforced, it gets stronger. And so it's very easy for us to literally program the cells in our brains, the neurons and the neural pathways, to be very negative, to be judgmental, to be resentful, to be bitter. But wouldn't it be better to program your brain to seek out opportunities, to celebrate, to be happy, to get stronger? It's just like building muscles. You know, when you work a muscle over and over and over again, it gets stronger, it gets bigger, you get this muscle memory where it tunes into the job it has to do. So you become very good at, dancers get very good at dance moves. They don't even have to think about it anymore. And by putting that conscious effort into retraining our mind, to rewiring our brains, we are literally creating neural pathways between the cells, between the axons and the neurons, or whatever they're called, to be more positive, to look for new opportunities, to repeat positive behaviors rather than negative behaviors. The more we resist that drink or that cigarette or that next hit of whatever it might be, sugary drink, the easier it becomes to resist it the next time and the next time. It's not always going to be easy. There's going to be ups and downs, highs and lows, but it's about rewiring and reprogramming, getting better and better and stronger. In the new year, we often think about starting a new diet. But we don't just consume food, water, beer, sugar, processed food, e-numbers, whatever it might be. We also consume information. And I've talked before about focusing on the negativity of news media and how that can affect our brains. So we just need to be a bit careful about what we consume in terms of information, what kind of people we surround ourselves with. Are we surrounding ourselves with people who are bringing us down or lifting us up? Are we surrounding ourselves by judgmental people or accepting people who celebrate others? And there's also this idea, I think it was Marie Forleo came up with this notion of creating before you consume. What can we give to the world before we take from the world? We're not just consumers. We're not here just to consume and to feed this kind of capitalist system that we're a part of, this materialist system to buy stuff all the time. How about we shift away from being a consumer to a producer, and start thinking about creating something, creating a work of art, a body of work, writing, gardening, putting energy into the system rather than taking from it. What can we bring to life? What can we step up to life in order that it will step up to us? What can we take an interest in? What can we build? Can we play around with new ways of thinking, abstract ideas? Can we learn about poetry, take up art? I knew someone who was an estate agent many years ago and was quite a kind of negative person. But then the next time I saw them, they set up their own business, screen printing T-shirts and tapestries and things like that. And they were much more upbeat, much more engaged with life. And life was giving back to them in the same way. So we're getting near to the end now. And I just want to talk about the miracle question. So the miracle question is a kind of thing used in psychology, and it's basically you ask yourself, what would my life look like tomorrow if all my obstacles were removed? What would it be like? And back at the beginning I talked about creating a kind of version of yourself, a kind of goal that you can reverse engineer. Well, that's a question to ask yourself. What would my life look like if I didn't have these problems, these obstacles that apparently are in my way? And then how can I start to reverse engineer that? How can I start to act like that, be that person who doesn't have these obstacles? So that brings us kind of full circle now towards the end. Before I get into the last bit about my own intentions, I want to just remind you about that quote, that James Baldwin quote. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. So have a think about your own life. What are you not facing? What are you hiding from at the moment? Is it a career decision? Is it a diet decision? Is it an addiction? Is there something that you are not taking responsibility for, that if you were to face it and just to bite the bullet and find the courage, take that deep breath and step forward and face that pain point, that pressure point that you've been avoiding, and take ownership of it? If you were to face it, what thing would change? What is the thing? If you struggle with drink and you were to really face up to that, what would that do for your life if you could get that under control? If it's your finances like it was with me, if it's your career, if you're afraid of asking for that pay rise, because you don't like having those conversations. If you were to, if you're like me and you don't like yourself a lot and you work on creating a version of you that you like, face up to that pain point. What would that do for your life if things were different? Okay, so I'm going to get onto my intentions now. And so I've talked about how, think about how you want your life to feel in a few years' time. And for me, I am looking for peace, because I know when things fall into place, when I've got my money sorted out, I won't be wrestling with my financial situation. I will find peace there. So there's this key word for me, peace. For others, it might be power. It could be confidence. It could be empowerment. But I want to create a healthy, happy me so that I can bring my best self to my relationship with my daughter, with my wife, to my professional relationships, and also my relationship with myself. I want to be someone that I actually like, and that's something I've struggled with for a long time, and that's what the goal of my intention setting is going ahead. I'm going to granularize this. So it's all very well about saying what I want to be and who I want to be. I want to be fit, I want to be healthy, I want to be someone I like, I want to be kind, I want to be generous. But how do we go about that? So I'm going to start exercising 5 days a week. I'm going to carry on and build on that routine that I've been working on this last year since we've been in lockdown. I'm going to set an outrageous goal. I want to run a marathon in less than 4 hours. I've run a marathon before, but it was hard. And I gave myself an out by saying this is hard. But I'm going to set myself an outrageous goal, and that is to run a marathon in less than 4 hours. I know a lot of people listening to this might be much fitter than me and can do it very quickly, but for me that is a real outrageous goal, and I feel if I achieve that, I will have really ticked off. I'll be at peace with that kind of physical fitness challenge that I'm setting myself. But also, if I don't achieve it, I will be much fitter as a result of trying. It's one of those goals. If you shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you'll be among the stars. So I'm going to eat healthily, I'm going to drink plenty of water, I'm going to get plenty of sleep, and I'm really going to build that into my practice this year. I'm going to do more of the things that interest me. I love doing this podcast. I love talking to interesting people. I love my being in the outdoors. I'm going to do more of that this year. I love my writing. I'm going to just really try and focus on that and turn this into something that's a much more significant part of my life. Hopefully bring more listeners and a bigger audience to my writing for new magazines. I already write for the amazing Juno magazine, and I'm going to try and write for some other fantastic publications as well. I'm going to get outside by myself once a week just to give myself that kind of headspace, whether it's just a 5-minute walk at lunchtime or a longer trip out to meditate in the woods. I'm going to just get outside and no purpose, not going anywhere, just clear my head. I'm going to try and be the best version of myself. I'm going to attack those different roles and those states. I'm going to work on myself physically, mentally, and emotionally. Try to find kind of equanimity emotionally, not be triggered so easily by the things that grate on me or that I find annoying. And just understand that those things don't control me, but it's my reaction to those things that is under my control. And I just want to find peace. I don't want to stop fighting against reality. I want to find a state of acceptance, of release, of letting go. That's one of the big things. I'm going to get it tattooed on my arm. Just let go. Let go of all of these things that are causing friction because they get in the way. I'm going to work on this a little bit every day. I'm going to have a little routine and I'm going to adjust it. When they sent the Apollo astronauts to the moon, you know where the moon is, roughly speaking, but they didn't know where they were going to land. They had a good idea, roughly speaking, but when it came to actually getting there, they fired the rocket in the general direction of the moon. But all the way along, they made course corrections. They kept on refining their judgments based on where they were, where they wanted to go. And when they got to, just a few meters from the proposed landing zone, they realised, or Neil Armstrong realised, that it was too rocky to land. So he quickly adjusted and found a safer place to land. And we need to be a bit like that in our methodology. If something's not working, or if we're getting, if we're plateauing, or if something's becoming stagnant, then change it up, course correct, change things. If something's not working, change it, stop it, do something different. Every day, in every way, I am getting better and better. We have to understand that we're also human, and we're not robots. We can't be perfect every time we do this. And sometimes life throws us a curveball, so we need to be able to give ourselves a break when we need it. We need to take a change, make a change. Sometimes, especially with the way the world is right now, we can't always stick to the plan. But just keep coming back to it. Give yourself room to be human. Accept that some days you're going to be pissed off. Some days you're going to be elated. Some days it's going to be a struggle just getting out of bed. But allow that. Allow yourself that. See what works, see what doesn't work, and refine it for yourself. Stick post-its on your mirror if you have to. Get your daily mantras. Try something new. Build habits. Explore. That's what life is all about. Just exploring new things and making it wonderful. So those are my intentions. What about you? What are you going to take ownership of in 2021? How can you empower yourself to take responsibility and stop waiting for the thing that will make you happy, and just start being happy, so that everything else falls into place? Are there any practices and routines you can put together? Small things, just drinking a bit more water, going for a walk before you start work, going for a walk when you finish work, clearing your head, finding balance, and finding things that interest you and excite you and bring everything to life for you. How do you want to feel at the end of this year? Physically, financially, your state of mind, your state of confidence, in your relationships and work with your loved ones. How do you want to feel, and how can you make that happen? And how long are you going to keep falling back on those same excuses? How long are you going to blame your situation, those people around you? You can't control those things. They are outside of your sphere of influence. But by taking control of what you think, what you feel, and what you do, you can start to influence them by proxy. You can't control what people think, but you can become better in their eyes. What about some I am affirmations? I mentioned Chris X. He's this kind of ultimate version of me that I kind of look to try and be more like him. And I use affirmations like I am confident, I am strong. I kind of picture who I want to be as if I am that person already. And I am affirmations connect us with that intention. They connect right through to the brain. They're kind of saying, I am this already. So what do you want to be? And how can you turn that into an I am affirmation? I am confident. I am successful. And remember, when we're not dealing with something, we are dealing with it anyway. If we're not dealing with our financial situation, we're dealing with it in the worst way. If we're not consciously dealing with our health, it will come back to be dealt with in a much more negative way. So take ownership, keep it fresh, keep changing things up, and just start to live your life rather than being a victim of it or a subject of it. And just, step up, because when you step up to life, life will step up to meet you. All right, so that's about an hour or so of me rambling on about intentions. There was a kind of framework to that, and I hope you enjoyed it. It's a bit of a departure for me. Normally I am doing things like interviewing people on here and writing whimsical little things on my blog about how lovely life is. But I hope you enjoyed this. If you like more of this kind of thing, then message me. And in the meantime, if you're listening to this on New Year's Eve or on New Year's Day, I wish you all the best for a 2021 that is going to be fulfilling and happy, and whatever challenges come your way, that you will take ownership. I said this to a friend of mine the other day. I said, let's aim in 2021 to do amazing things and be happy. So let's just set those as our goals. 2021, let's do amazing things and be happy. And even if that amazing thing is take up a new hobby, or getting out of the house once a week, or just looking after ourselves that little bit more, and doing those things that connect us with life just a little bit more, then that has to be something that we can feel happy about and worth celebrating. So here we are, beginning of a new period of time, whether it's the start of a new year, whether it's just the start of a new period for you. I wish you all the best, and I hope that you've got something from this and you've taken something useful away from it. And stay in touch, keep listening, and with big love to everybody, have a great year ahead.